The Second Great Awakening was a large religious reform that swept the United States after 1970, so this occurred around the 19th century. Preachers rejected the Calvinist belief that God predetermined your future, but it promoted individualism and responsibility. Some Christian churches even split over some of the ideas during the Second Great Awakening. Messages were preached to large gatherings up to 20,000 or more, and they were usually in outdoor settings like in camps. To start off talking about the Second Great Awakening, we will talk about a really famous preacher named Charles Grandison Finney, and he was known as the father of revivalism. He was known to be really severe and fierce, and he would get his point across really quickly because he would make his audience really anxious, and he would fasten his eyes upon them. He was known as an evangelic pioneer whose actions would be followed by a line of revivalists after him. We believe in the same God.
And we believe in the same thing.
Even though we're both different races.
The large gatherings were called revivals. They lasted 4 to 5 days. A revival is a religious gathering made to awaken religious faith through preaching and prayer. Revivalism swept across the country in the 19th century or the 1800s.
You had your coffee this morning, right?
Yep.
Well, did you know that the bean to make your coffee, God put that bean in the ground? So the best part of waking up is Jesus in your cup. Can I get an amen?
Transcendentalism is a philosophical and literary movement that emphasized living the simple life and celebrated the truth found in nature and in personal emotion and imagination.
I am Ralph Waldo, and I take great pride in my culture. I am a New England writer, nurtured in pride. I led the group of transcendentalists.
I, Henry David Thoreau, put the idea of self-reliance into practice. I advise people to follow their inner voices, and instead of protesting with violence, people should peacefully refuse to obey those laws. This form of protest is called civil disobedience.
Oh, man, slap that sucker. I'm back.
No. We are going to peacefully resist the laws and we're going to protest without violence.
Okay, so let's go over exactly what a utopian community is. They are experimental groups who try to create a perfect place. They shared goals such as self-sufficiency. Shaker communities followed the teachings of Ann Lee. They refused to fight for any reason and believed that men and women were equal. They also vowed not to marry or have children, but they did believe in adoption to keep their communities going.
It feels so good to be a Shaker.
Oh, let me find that person. I want to find him so bad.
No. We're Shakers. We will fight for no reason. Oh, hey, look, there's a child. Do you have any parents? I'm gonna take you in because I don't believe in having children, and the only way to keep my communities going is to adopt children.
Upon visiting a house of correction, Dorothy Diggs found that jails often house mentally ill people. In 1843, she sent a report of her findings to the Massachusetts legislature, who then passed a law aiming at improving conditions. Prison reforms emphasized rehabilitation. Revivalists believed that there was a hope for everyone.
I can't believe they house mentally ill people in this prison. I'm gonna take this to the Massachusetts legislature. In the 1830s, Americans began to demand tax-supported public schools. Opposition from German immigrants and well-to-do taxpayers erupted. Horace Mann of Massachusetts became the first secretary of the Massachusetts Board of Education. He established teacher training programs and instituted curriculum reforms. Also, he doubled the money that the state spent on schools. By the 1850s, every state had provided some form of publicly funded elementary school.
White support for abolition and the call to outlaw slavery was fueled by preachers like Charles Finney. He referred to slavery as a great national sin. David Walker wrote Appeal to the Colored Citizens of the World. He was a free black who advised blacks to fight for freedom rather than wait for slave owners to end slavery.
Work, slave, work!
Stop this! I'm William Channing, and this is a great national sin. You need to stop this. Let's go, slave.
That's my slave.
William Lloyd Garrison was the most radical abolitionist who started his own paper called The Liberator. This paper delivered the message of immediate emancipation, and this was the freeing of slaves with no payment to slaveholders. He also founded the New England Anti-Slavery Society and the National American Anti-Slavery Society.
Frederick Douglass was born into slavery and had been taught how to read and write by the wife of one of his owners. Douglass realized that knowledge could lead his pathway from slavery to freedom. He began his own anti-slavery newspaper called the North Star.
See this? Yeah, this says man. M-A-N.
Man.
Good job.
Hey! Stop teaching that slave to read!
I want to spread my knowledge to other slaves. I will write a newspaper called the North Star.
Let's talk about Nat Turner's rebellion. Nat Turner was born into slavery, and he believed that he had been chosen to lead his people out of bondage. In 1831, he judged an eclipse of the sun to be a signal for action. With about 80 followers, he attacked 4 plantations. His rebellion strengthened the resolve of Southern whites to defend slavery and control their slaves. This is an eclipse of the sun. This is a sign telling me I need to free my people from bondage. Come on, let's attack. Take this, white plantation owners. How you like your cotton now? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tearing all this stuff up. Yeah. Oh, take.
The debate over the future of slavery in Virginia resulted in a motion for abolition in the state legislature. The motion lost by a 73 to 58 vote. In addition, slaveholders believed that education and privilege inspired revolt. Thus, many slaveholders pushed their state legislators to tighten controls on African Americans, and this became known as slave codes. Education and privilege is inspiring these revolts of African Americans. I'm going to take this to the state legislature so they can tighten controls on African Americans, known as slave codes.
Jesus Christ. Is
No! Stop this! You are not allowed to preach the gospel, you slave. What do you have in your hand? Is that a gun? You are not allowed to have guns?
Some pro-slavery advocates use the Bible to defend slavery, citing passages that consoled servants to obey their masters. Even Southern white Christian ministers gradually shifted toward accepting slavery during the 1830s. Elizabeth Cady Stanton played a big role in the women reform along with her Quaker abolition friend Lucretia Mott. Both women wanted to form a society to advocate for women's rights and held the first women's rights convention at Seneca. 2 women abolitionists during this time were Sarah and Angelica Grimmett. They were the daughters of slaveholders and spoke equally for abolition. Angelina published an appeal to Christian women of the South and called upon women to overthrow such a horrible system of cruelty.
The temperance movement was the effort to prohibit the drinking of alcohol, and it was an offshoot of the influence of churches and the women's rights movement. Stop! What are you doing? With the temperance movement, I'm going to banish alcohol forever. Look what it does to people.
Angel!
So let's talk about health reforms. In the mid-19th century, educated women began to work for health reforms. Elizabeth Blackwell became the first woman to graduate from medical school, and she later opened the New York Infirmary for women and children. Catherine Beecher found 3 sick women for every healthy one.
The fashion of women included corsets so restrictive that breathing sometimes was difficult. Amelia Bloomer adopted the full trousers that became known as bloomers in 1861. Look,
I'm wearing pants! In 1848, Elizabeth Staton and Lucretia Mott decided to hold a women's rights convention called Seneca Falls Convention, and it was held for women's rights. Staton composed the Declaration of Sentiments, and it said that all men and women were equal. 300 women and men gathered at Westland Methodist Church for this convention. Participants approved all parts of the Declaration, and the resolution calling for women to the women had the right to vote also passed by a narrow majority.
Seneca Falls Convention.
I'm Elizabeth Cady Staton, and I'm going to declare that all men and women are equal in the Declaration of Sentiments.
That's good!
Sojourner Truth was a slave for the first 30 years of her life. After she had been freed, she had decided to travel throughout the country, preaching and arguing for abolition to come forth and boom, and hopefully end slavery.
Factory production started to spread rapidly, and the cost of making household items and clothing dramatically dropped. New machines allowed unskilled workers to perform tasks that had once had employed trained artisans. Francis Cabot Lowell even allowed women to start working in his mills, as did other women. I'm Francis Lowell, and you women can work in my mill because I don't have to pay you as much as my other workers.
European immigration rose dramatically in the U.S. between 1830 and 1860. Irish immigrants faced bitter prejudice because they were Roman Catholic and because they were poor.
Supreme Court backs of the strikers. Many strikes took place beginning around the 1830s and 1840s. The Massachusetts Supreme Court supported workers' rights to strike in the case of the Commonwealth versus Hunt.
The large social gatherings were called revivals. The revivals lasted 4 to 5 days. They were religious.
The debate over the future of slavery in Virginia resulted in a motion for slavery by
Fail! You failed! Look at your failure! She failed! She failed!
I'm Francis Cabot Lowell, and you woman can work in my mill.
I know you just didn't tell me to work. I ain't working for you. You ain't
Okay!
The debate over the future of slavery in Virginia resulted in a motion for abolition in the state legislature. The motion lost by a 73 to 58%. It's not percent!